Your body has been trying to tell you something for months, maybe years. That tightness in your chest when you try to affirm abundance, the knot in your stomach when you visualize the life you say you want. You've blamed stress, poor sleep, bad posture, but by the end of this, you'll understand exactly what your body is holding and why releasing it changes everything about how you manifest. Most people treat manifestation as a purely mental exercise. Think the thought, hold the image, feel the feeling, and when it stalls, they assume they need better affirmations or a more disciplined mental diet. Meanwhile, their shoulders are concrete, their jaw is clenched, their breathing is shallow enough to starve a candle flame. The mind says, "I am wealthy." The body whispers, "I am bracing for impact." Guess which one the universe reads as your actual signal? Neville Goddard taught that the feeling is the secret. He emphasized sleeping in the state of the wish fulfilled, letting your entire being marinate in the assumption until it hardened into fact. But there's a detail most people gloss over. Neville said feeling and everyone heard emotion. Those are different things. Emotion is excitement, joy, gratitude. Feeling is the full body sense of being someone. The posture, the breath pattern, the way your muscles hold themselves when you genuinely occupy a state. A person who feels wealthy in their bones sits differently than a person performing excitement about money. Your body stores every experience you've ever had as a physical pattern. Every rejection letter, every time someone laughed at your dreams, every moment you had to shriek yourself to stay safe. These memories live in your tissue, your fascia, your habitual tension. Wilhelm Reich called it body armor, the physical rigidity people develop to protect against emotional pain. He observed that patients who couldn't release chronic muscle tension also couldn't release the emotional patterns locked inside it. The armor served a purpose once. It kept you functional during moments that would have overwhelmed you. But armor you can't remove becomes a prison. So what happens when you sit down to manifest? You close your eyes. You build the scene. You try to assume the state of someone who has what you desire, and your body immediately objects. Your chest tightens, your breathing shifts. A vague sense of dread pulls in your stomach. You're running straight into the armor, and the armor is saying, "Last time you wanted something this badly, you got hurt." I'm keeping you locked in the familiar state, because the familiar state is survivable. This is why willpower-based manifestation burns people out. You're fighting your own protective mechanisms with sheer mental force. Imagine trying to sprint while wearing a suit of lead. You can push through for a while. Eventually your legs give out. The lead suit wins. Every time. Peter Levine spent decades studying how animals discharge stress after a threat. A gazelle that escapes a lion will shake violently for several minutes, then walk away as if nothing happened. The shaking completes the survival cycle. Humans interrupt this cycle constantly. We suppress the trembling. We hold it together. We pride ourselves on composure, and the incomplete survival energy stays locked in the body, waiting for a discharge that never comes. Those manifestation blocks you feel as physical resistance? Many of them are incomplete stress cycles from years ago, still running in the background like forgotten programs eating up your processing power. So how do you actually work with this? The approach has two layers, and skipping either one keeps you stuck. The first layer is somatic awareness. Before your next manifestation session, spend 5 minutes just scanning your body. Start at the crown of your head and move down slowly. Where is there tension, numbness, heat, cold, a buzzing sensation? You're mapping the terrain of your resistance. Most people have never even catalogued what their body does when they try to step into an expanded state. They skip straight to the mental scene and wonder why nothing lands. The body scan reveals the specific armor you're wearing. You can't remove what you haven't identified. The second layer is where the real transformation happens. Once you locate the tension, you stay with it. You breathe into it. You let it intensify if it wants to. This is the part that feels counterintuitive, because every instinct says to push past the discomfort and get to the good feeling, that pushing is the same pattern that created the block. The body armored up because you overrode its signals. Overriding its signals again just adds another layer of protection. When you stay with the sensation, genuinely stay without trying to fix it or fast forward through it, something shifts. The tension peaks and then begins to dissolve. Sometimes there's a tremor. Sometimes a deep exhale, sometimes tears that seem to come from nowhere. That's the incomplete cycle finally completing itself. That's the body releasing a story it's been clutching for years. Rumi wrote that the wound is the place where the light enters you. Most spiritual seekers love that line. Few actually sit with the wound long enough for the light to arrive. They read the quote, nod, and go back to reciting affirmations over clenched muscles. The wound requires your presence, your patience, your willingness to feel something you've spent a lifetime avoiding. Here's what makes this approach so effective for manifestation specifically. When the body releases stored tension, the state you've been trying to assume suddenly becomes accessible. The wealthy feeling, the loved feeling, the healthy feeling, they're already available underneath the armor. You were never generating them from scratch. You were trying to access states your body was actively blocking. Remove the block, and the state floods in like water through an open dam. The effort drops away. The assumption becomes effortless because there's no longer a physical counterforce fighting it. Candace Pert's research on neuropeptides showed that emotions are stored and processed throughout the body in receptor sites on cells far from the brain. Your gut, your heart, your immune cells, they all participate in emotional processing. When you hold an unresolved emotional pattern, your entire body is organized around that pattern. Every cell is receiving the chemical signature of the old story, affirming a new story with your mind, while your cells are bathed in the chemistry of the old one, creates a civil war inside you. One side has to win. Usually, the body wins. It has more votes. A daily practice of somatic release before mental assumption changes the ratio. You're clearing the chemical signature of the old pattern first. Then, when you step into the new state, your body doesn't fight it. The assumption settles into tissue that's ready to receive it. Neville's feeling becomes literal, a whole-body experience rather than a mental performance. There's a common objection worth addressing. Some people worry that focusing on stored tension is dwelling on the negative, that it contradicts the principle of living in the end. The concern makes sense on the surface, but there's a difference between dwelling on a problem and completing an interrupted process. Dwelling is mental rumination, replaying the story, reinforcing the identity of someone who was harmed. Somatic release has no story. You're working with raw sensation. Tightness, vibration, temperature. When you stay at the level of sensation without attaching narrative, the body processes and releases without reinforcing the old pattern. You come out cleaner, lighter, more available for the new assumption. Think about the last time you cried unexpected during meditation or prayer. Something moved through you that your mind couldn't name or control. In those moments, you weren't manifesting consciously, you were unblocking. And afterward, you probably felt a clarity and openness that no amount of scripting or affirming had produced. That spontaneous release was your body completing what it needed to complete. The practice I'm describing is simply doing that deliberately, with intention and regularity, instead of waiting for it to happen by accident once a year. Your body is the instrument through which manifestation expresses itself in the physical world. A violin with warped strings can't hold the melody, no matter how skilled the musician. You've been tuning the musician, refining your mental technique, sharpening your visualizations, perfecting your affirmations. The strings need attention too. Tonight, before you sleep, try this. Lie down and scan from head to feet. Find the densest point of tension. Place your attention there like a warm hand. Breathe slowly. Let whatever arises arise. Give it 90 seconds of your complete presence. That's all. 90 seconds of letting your body speak instead of being overruled. Then, from that softened place, assume your state. Feel the difference. The assumption will land in a body that's finally willing to receive it. You've been carrying armor you forgot you put on. The combination to unlock it was always the same. Your own steady, patient attention.